Good morning, guys. This is the Creativity 202 check-in session 13, Charlie, for, let's see, May 21st, 2023. So the previous hour was Foundations Q&A, which may have been the best hour we've done lately, answering the question about how to not struggle to correctly assess the market and find things to trade, which is a pretty good question. I mean, we're getting closer and closer to the root question every time. How do I do that? Yeah. So it was a pretty good hour. It had samples and a worksheet, a flashcard, and it's going to become the basis of a new developing the coach's eye. That if somebody were to ask you the question the way the question was asked to me, and you could predict the way I was going to answer it, then you will have internalized my coaching eye. So that's probably why you should listen to it 30 times if you want to coach in that way, I think. Because we unpacked some game film on that one. So that was a pretty good day at work for that hour for me. So I'm doing pretty good here in Kansas. Both our teams got smoked last night. The pro team, the women they're trying a new formation, and they made a back pass to their goalie, which was too slow and got intercepted, and they scored. And then we gave up an easy one and couldn't get out of the hole. And then Sporting Kansas City went to St. Louis and got absolutely murdered by a team that was ready to play. So they just got to mark up the chart and move on to the next trade. Their fans aren't happy about it, but their fans aren't playing the game and living the next game. Those guys are, so they're carrying the water for us. And I should also say that I wrote a course Friday from scratch on developing detailed insights of the top 20 trading metaphors that I use. I finally decided it was just time to quit monkeying around with it and get it documented. And it grew in the telling, and it became an entire course by Friday lunch. So it was pretty cool. I got a few things to add to it, like pictures and a verbal introduction, but I was pretty pleased with that level of work. I've come to a good partnering understanding now with Koala Writer and ChatGPT. The first month that I had it, I had difficulty imagining how I could possibly use 2.5 million words of writing support with ChatGPT 3.5, or 500,000 words a month with GPT-4. It took me all month to consume that much. And I've used 50% of my next monthly allocation in 3 days. So I'm now wishing that maybe I'd gone for the 10 million words. But that would have cost 25 grand for the lifetime membership, and I think my wife would have drawn the line there. I would not have been able to explain. It would have been the right decision, but I would not have been able to explain that to her in a way that would save my life. So, yeah, like the philosopher Harry Callahan said, a man's got to know his limitations. Men of a certain age will know that one. So that's everything for my check-in and my work in progress. So I'll check in with you guys, see how you're doing. Jeff, I reviewed your paper. Well, that'll be an interesting discussion later. How are you doing?
I'm good. So behind me, you see an old 1966 Piper Cherokee airplane. And I rescued this thing 4 or 5 years ago. And it was the fulfillment of a promise to my ground guys and mechanics that I would get them something that they could learn to fly in, because they were always grumbling about the fact that they worked on all these airplanes, but we didn't have anything they could fly. So I bought this airplane, and it turns out they didn't have any interest in it really. But I've spent the last 4 years restoring it. And my son and I spent all morning yesterday flying it, so it was super enjoyable. Things are good here, I hope.
50 years ago or more, my dad and I, we would talk about little airplanes all the time. We lived next to Greater Pittsburgh Airport. Could see them landing. And we used to go watch the Air National Guard shooting landings there with the old F-104 Starfighter,
Oh wow!
the killer of many fine young men, a monster. But I used to just watch it all the time. And I remember on the long trips, he was a industrial parts sales representative for Weatherhead, who makes all the pneumatics hosing for power steering and brakes and air conditioning. All this, they sell the fittings that other people use to make the entire. And I remember driving around with catalogs of small of Piper planes, and
Yeah,
and the Cherokee. I love that one. The I think it was the Navajo, if I remember. They had a 2-seater that just was so beautiful to me, and I liked it because it had 2 engines instead of 1, so you had two to make 1. And I still remember those color glossy and Piper. There's something elegant about those. I just love them. Anyway, I'll hold to that. Ernie, what's going on, man?
Hi there, everyone. Good to be here. Seeing that airplane, I remember when I was growing up, I used to watch a TV show called Sky King. I used to love that. The Songbird, it was a neat thing. So kind of neat. It's good to be with everybody. I would say that I really missed a great session last week. I listened to the recording, but then I realized that it's not an exceptional lesson. It's kind of become the standard. These things are, I always look forward to coming back with you guys because these things are really great. So good to be with everyone.
And Satya, welcome back. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. And hello, everyone. Good morning. And yeah, it's nice to be back here. I missed a couple of sessions, but I'm coming back to them. And in Toronto, weather is nice. Everything is good. And this regarding the plane, I see that behind Jeff. I always want to learn how to fly. Maybe you can teach me someday.
yeah, we have an open invitation here. I don't think we've ever said no to someone who wants to go fly. All you have to do is come down here.
Sure, one day I will. Thank you. Aho.
And Chun Long, how are things?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, the weather, we have extremely hot and dry weather in our province. So we had a lot of wildfires in our province and neighbor province. So the weather is hot and cloudy. That's a smoke. It's not cloud. That's the weather. I just want to have a quick comment about the planes, aircraft, in a different way. What I realize how big difference between China and Canada or the United States. The city I lived in China is now have 2 million people. They only have a airport in 10 years. So I found out in Canada, every small town, 10,000 people have a airport, small or big. That's how big difference between China and the North America. The reason I said that, many people talk about how great China is. In some emotional sense, it is true, but in economy or the development, China is way behind the North America. When I go to United States, have a road trip, the farm is 100 acres, 1,000 acres. But in China, see, my parents, they used to live a collective farm. Their portion is only a quarter of acre. work on. Imagine, somebody work on a quarter of an acre for farming, and somebody work on 1,000 acres. How different is that? When talk about the different, I get emotional. But I hold to that.
And Damien, how are we doing?
I had a good week. When I'm looking at Jeff's airplane, it reminds me when I was 9 years old, where my dad was learning how to fly an airplane, and he took us and we flew over Vancouver Island, which was really awesome. And so it brings back some good memories. I don't know if it was exactly the same kind of plane, but it was a small plane. There was two of us, me and my dad, and that's it. It was only a two-seater, not one of those big jumbo jets. So everything is good, and I'm looking forward to today's, Creativity 202 and to the week ahead. I hope.
All right, so here we are into the room, and off we go. Shunlong.
Yeah, I want to go first so I can listen to you guys, because mentally, emotionally, I'm not ready for this call in, because something else come out, knock me down emotionally. I couldn't call in, but when I read the lesson, I said, oh, what the hell? Nothing else I can done about that. At least I can call in. That's it. So the last week, my word of week is empty. That's a spiritual meaning that try to empty my bowl from the past. That's the way I understand that. I did listen to the professor's lecture on the Wu as Ken recommended. I forgot his last name, but first name Edward from the UBC. Really interesting for me. He said Lao Tzu, Confucian, Mencius, and Zhuangzi all the same talk about Wu Wei. That's a new perspective for me. For me, they are really different. It's not so. Confucian and Mencius is the same. Mencius is the disciple, but how can you say Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi are same with Confucian? But anyway, that's how fantastic about that lecture. I listened that twice. He gave a talk as a podcast, a 1.5 hour podcast. I listened that. Really interesting. So last week trading, it's not a good week in money sense. I lost money. I made old bad habit mistakes. The positive side is I can face my fear better, manage my day better. The other thing I realized, I haven't done enough my diligence compared to other traders, their charts, their screenshot, their analysis histogram. I realized, I realized that, many days, many months ago, but didn't have courage to acknowledge that. How come I'm not diligent? I'm a good person, good engineer. But anyway, I acknowledge that. Acknowledge I haven't done enough. That's the trading last week. Today's lesson, I read the lesson read the trader's exercise like a meditation. Probably better word is a complete, I forget the word, but kind of a meditation. Contemplation is the better word. Think about, life is always two step forward, one step backward. Just to learn how to choose the travel path. Right now, nothing is really big as to existential threat. There's none for me. So if I can control my risk, there's no serious problem. Just how I learn, new field of profession. I used to be an engineer, probably not the best engineer, but I always think I'm a better engineer compared to my peers. That's how I get from this trader's exercise. For next week, I have to go back to the basics. I will write some 3 or 4 simple rules that try to follow my rules. So my goal is not to repeat that bad habit mistake. What I did, I take a OR3 entry, it's quickly back to the 1 hour loss. I didn't cut my loss. I add another position. Watch that, just cannot help to do that. But once I did that, I realized that mistake. Take me a couple of minutes, watch that trade develop, move back a little bit. For the 2 position approach, 1 hour loss, I said, or whatever, cut it, I move on, I cut it. But still, just how strong the bad habit it is. So my next week goal is just not to repeat that, whatever I do, not repeat that. If I didn't repeat that mistake, I have winning week. That's my plan. I hope.
Jeff.
Can you guys hear me? So
Yes.
just to start out, I'd like to give a shout out to Ernie for starting the unofficial tortoise or creativity trader group that meets on Saturday, accountability group. Super positive experience so far, and interesting that he went from not wanting accountability to being part of a group of accountability. So yesterday during the accountability session with the other traders, I was looking from a coach's perspective, and that's where the biggest lesson of the week, and maybe from all of creativity, the light bulb came on, and I thought, you need to share. This is what you need to share. It was unplanned, and the trader in me said, no, you're not sharing that. So I knew then that that's what I needed to share today. And so to make sure I didn't chicken out, I emailed it to Ken this morning and said, this is what I'm going to talk about. And I'll get to that. So my word of the week last week was clarity. Let me double check and make sure that's right. Because I had something prepared, but I'm going to go off book here. Yeah, clarity was my word. And I had said a couple of weeks ago that I've read all these thousands of books looking for truth. I don't think I'm looking for truth. I'm looking for clarity that maybe truth provides. So I got clarity on Saturday. And at the beginning of the week, when I started this lesson, I remember feeling kind of bored with it. And I had an internal dialogue that said, you know I have an ego, but it's under control and I have a good relationship with it. And I understand how it might affect my decision making. And I have processes and controls to manage that. And then on Saturday, I realized that's not true at all. And so today I'm telling myself the same thing. Now, after this epiphany, I know I have an ego and I have processes and controls to make sure it doesn't get in the way of good decision making. But I'm also wondering, with this new clarity, how am I deceiving myself today? Because it's the same story that I told myself on Monday that I realized was false. So I wasn't really interested in this lesson. And then I got interested in it because of the wheelbarrow exercise, which is fantastic. But reading it, I was really informative, actually. About the third run through it, it got interesting. So I remember times when I overreacted earlier, and I don't do that much anymore because I take a breath, which is that wedge that Ken describes between your emotions and your actions. You know, for me, one deep breath will usually keep me from doing something that I regret in life. And then the idea that the ego, what he thinks is true and what he feels is real, you know, he believes it in the moment. And I've got what I'm going to share with you is the perfect illustration in my life this week in my trading of the ego versus the world, I guess. But the more I learn, the more I realize how little I actually know. I say this all the time to my students, and it's a cautionary tale to them that, you know, 3 decades ago, when I had 1,500 hours, I thought I knew everything about aviation. And now, after a lifetime in it, I realize I know a little bit and it's valuable to me, but there's always a lot more to learn. And then humility is actually what I'm taking away from this lesson. And I'll tie that into my story in a little bit. And the idea of the perspective, surround yourself with different perspectives, ties right back into my construction of my trusted inner circle and my actors in my trading. I've been working on that, and I actually thought I had it done because I had this neat little package, and I had my 3x5 card, and I had my sketch, and I had everything drawn out, but it was just a superficial, glossy 2% attempt, right? You need to go deeper into what these guys are doing and feeling, and what they can do for you and how they can hurt you. And that's something that has come out of this lesson. So the exercises, exercise 1, I actually did that as part of my morning routine. I found it difficult to remain properly balanced and oriented with my eyes closed. If you move your feet at all, it's pretty easy to get disoriented. All you have to do is open your eyes and see yourself from that other perspective to make proper adjustments. Exercise 3 kind of ties into my story today. It's the whole idea of the sniper trading system. So I just imagine that Ken has hired me to learn his sniper system and that I'm only doing my best to follow his instructions. So the trading is not difficult for me. Typically, what I'm doing right now, sharing with you guys, is way more difficult and challenging than the trading. I realized this week that my trader part feels great and confident after 4 winning trades, and he feels incompetent after 5 losing trades. So his state is directly tied to the previous 3 to 5 trades, and you can map out his confidence and emotions. Just look at the last 3 trades and you'll see what he's thinking. And then, so I'm going to share that with you. And exercise 4 is imagine a person and look at it from their view. So that's what I do in my coaching perspective, is I actually imagine what would Ken say. And that's kind of the role model that I use for my coaching self. And then I actually invited Ken to speak after I finish, and maybe we can get his perspective, which will be informative for me. And then the wheelbarrow exercise just took me back down memory lane. I'm so grateful for that, because I didn't have to imagine anything about wheelbarrows. I've been operating them since I was a kid. And I remember when I started, I was so small that I actually balanced the wheelbarrow on top of my shoulders, the handles, because that's the only, I couldn't lift it up from the waist. I was too short. And of course I started out shaky and not knowing how it worked and couldn't balance it. And then it wasn't very long until I'm running around with a loaded wheelbarrow, and my grandfather and my dad are saying, slow down, don't overload it, make 2 trips, all those things. And then I learned how to get it through the mud. And then, my grandfather or somebody said, hey, don't do that. Put a board down here and we'll make this path and just keep it on the board. Well, now you have another problem, keep the wheelbarrow on the board, because, you go off the board, you turn it over. And I can remember turning the wheelbarrow over many times. And when that happened, my response was kind of like embarrassment, I think. So my strategy when I turned the wheelbarrow over was to reload it very quickly before anybody realized that I had turned it over again. And I also realized that nothing's really changed for me in my life, because even now I'm doing the same thing I was doing when I was a kid. My airplane is just a really expensive, complex wheelbarrow. So the job site is the fire, and the raw materials are at the tanker base, and they call me and say, hey, this is what we need. And then my job is to estimate how much of this material can I safely haul out there and what will be the challenges and obstacles to get there. And that made me think of an old TV show. Let me find it. I actually looked it up and watched it, and it was amazing. You guys should watch it. So it was an old obstacle course show called American Ninja Warrior. So Google Casey Catanzaro in the 2014 Dallas finals of American Ninja Warrior. She was a 5-foot-tall gymnast, weighed 100 pounds. Some of the obstacles were wider apart than her wingspan, so she ended up having to jump from obstacle to obstacle. But if you want to see grit, planning, preparation, determination, and executing like a boss, watch that little gymnast put those big guys to shame. That was pretty inspiring. And Ken, if you'll let me share my screen, I'm going to share this document.
Yeah, you should be able to.
Okay, I'm working on it here. Okay, do you guys see my trader document here? So this is what my ego didn't want me to share with you. And this was something I did. So I finished my trading week on Friday at noon, and my trader was just on cloud 9, the trader part of me, just simply because he had two nice days at the end of the week and finished positive. So I thought we graduated, or my cohort finished the Kata Challenge on Tuesday. And part of my debrief with Phil and Griff was you might consider doing an individual debrief with each of your students. There may be some value in that. So I was inspired to create this for them and just email it to them and say, here's what, it might look like. And I realized on Saturday that I would have never, been inspired to create this document if I had had 2 bad days and a negative week, right? I would have never even created it. So we wouldn't even be looking at it. But I won't go in order. I just want to show you, this is my trader on Friday at noon. And I'm not going to read all this, but I'll be happy to share it with you if you want to mine it for gold for yourself. But he's just bragging on himself about how good he is, and he says, I give myself a 9 for following my plan from the prior day. This is the highest number in the series, and I didn't do anything unplanned, and blah, blah, blah. And I've actually incorporated my coach's notes into the same document, although they're 2 separate processes. It just made it easier for me to have 1 document to manage instead of 2. And then on Friday, same story with the trader. He says, this was my most professional week to date, especially considering the work demands. My thinking was clear, and I was more in the zero state. And this is the best trading I've done in the past 45 days. So I left at lunch and went to work, flew some airplanes, did some work, came home, and late on Friday I did my weekly review, and I've attached that here as well. And I realized the wide gap between my coach's perspective and my trader's perspective, because the coach didn't see things the same way. And I had some constructive criticism, and then I had a plan. Let's let all this go. It's over with, and we have a plan for next week, and that's on there. But just to show you this this trade right here. So this was one of the two trades that I took on Friday. Cliff on a 1 minute chart. My trader recorded this as an SSC/Kata2 entry with a no lose plus dinner for 2 exit. But my coach noticed that the SSC entry was actually, several bars prior. I didn't take that, and that would have been a stop out trade based on my stop location. And but then the RL30 rolls up, and price gets my trader part in here with the RL10 still below the dragon. So that's not correct for me. And but the trade did actually start working after I entered it, and my stop was was right here at the bottom of the PSAR dots. But it looked like I was going to get stopped out, and then it reverses and moves up, and my trader exits there and calls that a no lose plus dinner for 2. So my coach calls me out on that and says this is not exactly like you described it. But the interesting thing is that the trader part of me believed what he said at the time. He wasn't, I wasn't trying to fool myself, because I didn't plan on showing this to anybody. But same with this trade, which was my second trade on Friday. My trader part was pretty confident in this trade. And then the coach kind of tore it apart a little bit and said, look, there was a Kata2 short here, and there was a collapsing dragon, and you're late on the entry. And, you said that you were trailing your stop. And I had this other screenshot that I took, because I take a lot of screenshots during the trading day. I don't always keep them all, but I had this one. And my coach said, look, if you're trailing a 1R stop, you had 4.5R in this trade, and you should have exited at 3.5R, but you exited at 3.1R. So what's going on there? So that was the big aha moment for me, was the difference between the trader part, and the same story on all these charts. This is one of my 30-minute swing trades in marijuana. The trade triggered Friday, so I should have entered on the first bar Saturday morning, but I didn't like it there. I didn't take it when it made a new high from the previous bar, but later on it looked good enough to take, and I held it overnight even though it closed weekly, and got out at no lose plus dinner for 2. But there's problems with that trade as well, that my trader persona identifies that my trader doesn't see in the moment. So you see that disconnect. And this is the big slide that the coach caught, because the trader was feeling super confident because of the last 2 days and the last 4 trades. And my coach came back and said, hang on a second, you've got 5 losing trades, and you've made 405 trades. And even in this last 46 trades, which this is building my set of 50, I just didn't make it there this week. You have 5 losing trades in a row here, 5 losing trades in a row here. And even this week, 5 of these 6 trades in a row were losing trades. So maybe we need to go investigate that instead of, having a party. And the biggest lesson of the whole thing was, when I look back, this chart was just sent to Phil and Griff to show all 405 trades. But on this screenshot, you can see the first 35 trades that I made, and you can see the equity curve. So this is the humble trader who is feeling insufficient, but he has a lot of experience trading, but he knows that he doesn't know much, because what he does know is just what he's copied from Ken's nightly podcast. And he's feeling insufficient, and it doesn't feel good, but he has a very nice equity curve. He doesn't lose 5 trades in a row. He doesn't get caught up in the noise. And this is my confident trader over here on this side, you know, this V. And he's so happy that he dug a hole and then pulled himself out of it. But that was very informative to me, the difference between the two, from a trading perspective and then from a coach's perspective. So I think that's what I have to share with you guys today. And yeah, I think that's about it. Aho.
Damien.
So I started the exercises earlier this week, and I had to go to a dictionary because some of those words that were in there I did not understand. So I'm learning English. That's good. Thanks, Ken. In regards to the exercises, I tried to do the first one, and I was having some struggle until Ken was talking. I realized that about a decade ago, I was doing some exercises because I had back problems. And when I was doing the exercises without using a mirror, the exercise was to stand on 1 foot with your eyes closed. And I was having some challenges until I opened my eyes and looked myself in the mirror. And it came out that I was able to stand on 1 foot for a very long period of time. So looking at this in perspective, it is true. If you dissociate yourself from yourself, you can achieve what I would call miracles. In exercise number 2, I remembered also when I was a young kid, I was with my cousin. We were in the Pyrenees. He took me mountain climbing, and we had to climb with the rope and all that good stuff. And it was very, very, very challenging. But I also remember in perspective that when I was doing it in my mind, it looked so easy. So it taught me a lesson at that time: don't take any risks. But in perspective, looking back at it now, I shouldn't have looked at it by taking less risk. I should have looked at it as being a growing experience, and I should have taken my claws out, if I could use that term, and learn how to mountain climb, either of me sitting on the sideline and doing nothing. In exercise number 3, what I did this week is I went out and I took my camera, something that I haven't done in years, and I took some pictures. I downloaded the pictures on my computer, and I did some self-criticism, and then I went and said to myself, maybe I should present those to a professional photographer so he can criticize them. Something that I did. It was enlightening, and I was able to learn on what I did wrong, what I could improve. So it was an awesome experience, and it's bringing me that I'm going to try to do the chat koala to do imagery and do it that way, because I like to create my own totem. So that's going to be on my list of to-do things for this week. In regards to the brick exercise, I approached it from a different perspective than Jeff. I looked at bricks as obstacles that I had when I was doing a task. And I realized in terms of trading that I'm having to focus on too many things at the same time. So one of the things that I did for this week is I wrote down on a piece of paper all the bricks that I have to work on in terms of my trading and my life in general. And one of the first brick that I have to work on is that I accomplish tasks too quickly. I need to slow down because over the long term, it's going to save me a lot of time. One of the other brick that I have to work on is I have a lot of bias, mostly when it comes to the market. And I noticed this week when I was trading, I removed the bias from the equation. I focused on the charts and I had more success. But I'm not going to do like in the past and claim that I climbed the mountain and I'm a good trader. So I have to stop being overconfident so that I don't fall flat on my face like I used to. Another of the break that I have to work on is I have a lot of difficulty focusing on tasks for a very long period of time. So I have to learn how to break that my attention into smaller bits of data or time so that I can accomplish the task at hand. The other thing that one of the other breaks that I have to work on is distraction, and it came up several times. I'm a little bit like Ernie. I get distracted all the time by the wife, by children, by phone calls, and so on. So I have to learn how to create boundaries so that I can concentrate on whatever it is that I do, mostly my trading. The other break that I have to work on is the fear of losing money. And on the other side is also the fear of making money. And it's a psychology challenge that I have that I am going to work on. And the steps to be able to do that is I'm going to have to review the trades from the past week and identify the losses and find why I'm making losses and the actions that I could take to be able to minimize those losses. I have to look at my emotions on when I trade by taking and keeping a trading journal that's more thorough than what I have right now. And another brick that I have to work on is the fear of missing out. I have to ask myself, what emotions did I feel when I didn't take these trades or when I took these trades? I have to write down all the emotions I experienced, such as regret, anxiety. I have to reflect on every of my emotions to find out what the cause of my fear is. so I can overcome it. Another break that I have to work on is the fear of being wrong. And I can resolve that by looking at my trades, like I said above. Let's see. And the other break that I have to work on is the fear of not knowing enough about the trade that I'm going to take. And I believe that I can resolve that issue by having a trading plan, knowing when I'm going to take the trade, at what level, what the target is, and so on. So it's going to be a work in progress. So the other thing that I have to work on is God, I can't even read my notes. I'm just going to call it a day. Aho.
Ernie.
I knew this lesson was really good. I went over it 3 or 4 times, and I just knew the wheelbarrow and the bricks, I think is great, and I knew that you guys would see that right away, and you would know the value of it. And I focused on, well, I'll tell you, I'll start with my trading. I'm really slow getting into it. Whenever I was in college, my roommate and I, Phil was pretty. He was going to be a doctor, and he's a good-looking guy. He was popular, and I enjoyed being his roommate. And he was dating this one girl that she was pretty neat. I liked her as well. And then he thought he moved on. He dated somebody else, and I didn't understand, why he dropped her, but because I really liked her. And Phil, we would talk about her, and he knew that I liked her, and I always said that I'd really like to go out with her and be kind of a neat experience. And he said, she'll never go out with you if you don't ask her. Oh, okay. I'm kind of that way with my investing. I'm if I don't jump in, how am I going to know if I'm successful? But I'm really afraid about it, and and to be honest, I've been doing it for a long time, but I have a different approach now since I've been part of the tortoise community. I'm learning to do it the right way, and so, but it's like I now know a little bit more about it, and I know for some reason I'm picking up on reasons why to be afraid of it. Before, I think, like Damien has talked about, I jumped in and was doing options. I was doing things I had no business doing, and I wasn't investing. I was gambling, but I didn't know that. I just jumped in and did it anyway, and so it was kind of strange. But now I know more, and I have more respect about what I'm doing, and I want to treat it with respect. I like it, and the people that I admire the people that are successful with it, and so it's amazing. And I'm really gotten off track. I didn't mean to go in that direction. I really wanted to tell you that I my investing journey has been slow because of that fear, and but I'm getting over it. And part of you guys have been a big part of it because you've shared your experiences, and I really learning to listen has been so important, and that's what's really helped me is hearing your experiences about it. So what I really did on the lesson, I was going over that and I thought, what's in I caught one paragraph in here, and it was about, I hope I'm saying this right, is it Nikan philosophy? That one paragraph talked about that Nikan philosophy is concerned with learning how to move on directly to doing the next important thing and letting the thoughts and feelings be what they are, acceptance, and no judgment. So the sooner we can get through that, the sooner we can get on with the task. So I felt that's the approach that I need to do with my investing. Get on with the task and move on. So I looked in more about what Nikon philosophy, and I thought it was interesting because it said that this method involves reflecting on 3 specific questions. What have I received? And what have I gotten from all of you? And what you get is the support, kindness, and you guys have encouraged me to recognize and appreciate what you've gone through. And so the other thing is, what have I given? Here's where I'm kind of weak. I don't know that I've given that much, but one of the things that I really try to do, I hope it's giving, but it's more receiving, and that's just to listen to what you guys have experienced and shared. So, and it encourages me to acknowledge your generosity and your compassion. And the third question is an interesting one. Is what troubles and difficulties have I caused? Probably quite a bit. Probably to Ken too, probably. But I am to reflect on the ways in which my actions may have caused difficulties or harms to others. And I think it makes me really be careful and to, I guess, I think it really what it does. It makes me be hesitant and saying things, talking about things that I know nothing about, and to acknowledge the fact that I don't know very much. And when I don't know something, don't talk about it, because what is that? How does that help? So I think that's probably one of my things that I have done, is that I may talk too much and don't listen enough. So I try to be careful about that. But it does, in reflecting on that, I understand that's supposed to develop empathy and remorse for past actions. It's certainly, and it does, because I think that's my biggest fear. It's one of the things that I pray about, not, for forgiveness, but not for my sins as much as any pain that I may have caused. To me, that's that's the sin in my life that I would like to be forgiven for, because I do not want to cause pain and harm to others. That's a big concern that I have. So I am really fascinated by this philosophy, and it was, to me, it's really interesting to find out more about that, and because I think one of the things it's supposed to do, the strategies that I'm supposed to develop is self-reflection, practicing mindfulness, seeking diverse perspectives. I love that part, because it's one of the things that I have gotten from all of you, is that you do think differently than I do, and to me, it's really it's something really neat. It's new ideas, and think new things that I can learn, and I learn it from the experience that you had. The other thing that this philosophy directs me to do is to embrace constructive feedback. And that's been great. That's one of the things that having accountability partners and getting that feedback to me, that's been amazing. What you guys, your experience has been really helpful for me. And so the other thing that I think that we're doing is doing the collaboration. You guys are talking about steps that you have taken, and you're saving me a trip because you've already been there. You've done that. And now I get to share on your experience. And then the other thing that the philosophy says to do is to embrace experimentation and failure. I do. One of the things that I've always learned, my grandfather always told me, I remember whenever I'd be playing and doing things and I'd fall down, his advice, 2 words, get up. So it's that simple. When you fall down, the next thing you're supposed to do is to get up. And so it was, I thought, really neat, all of these things that was in this lesson. And I'm glad that I caught that one paragraph and focused on it. So that, for me, that was my epiphany from the lesson. And as always, thank you for all that you guys do. And from my lesson, I think the biggest thing that I'm trying to take away from it is the one word, and it won't be my word for the week, but it should be my word for my life, and that's just to listen. Aho.
Satya.
Hello. As I was going through this lesson, unplugged your ego. I read about this story, Shaka. Shaka and Nandi is a very common name in India also. So I just read about a little bit more about it. This guy lived in South Africa, and he did the devastating thing by killing like so many women. So I came up with another story, which is very inspiring as the same women that involved in that too. So this is the story of an Indian man, Dashrath Manji, and he was born in 1934 in a very poor family and into the lower caste possible. And at that time, lower caste means that the life is just worse than the animals. So all his life he worked as a day laborer, and when he was a teenager, he ran to the another city and worked as a coal miner for 7 years, and then he returned back to his village. So he lived in a village called Gehlor. This village in Bihar, India, and this village is surrounded by rocky mountains. And there was no electricity, there was no water, there was nothing in this village. And if they have to go to the other side of the village where all these things were available, they have to go through like 40 miles route, or they have to climb through the mountain to reach to the other side. So after returning from the coal mines, he got married. He had a son, and he was working as a day laborer. And one day, his wife was pregnant with his second child, and he was working in the field. She like usually go climb through the mountains and provide him food and water and all this. So in 1959, when she was pregnant with his second child, she was at the top of the mountain, and there was some loose gravel, so she slipped and she fell down, and somebody ran to this Dasat Mandish that your wife has fell from the mountain. So he ran to there, and there was no vehicle, there was nothing to take her to the other side of the village. So with the help of his friend, they took a long piece of cloth, a sheet, and they put her, and they climbed through the mountain and went to the doctor. Like after 7-8 hours, they reached that place. But the doctors couldn't save her, but they saved her child, baby girl. And he was so devastated by her death. He was so in love with her that he used to go to the mountain, cried out loud there that you killed my wife, and I'm going to take you down. And in 1960, he was so poor, he didn't have any money. So 1960, he had 2 goats. He sold them and purchased a hammer and a chisel. And with that only tool, only guy, he was 5 feet tall and 50 kg, very thin guy. So he started taking down that mountain. And he was saying that I have to go to hand carve a safer path for the villagers, so they can, if that kind of tragedy happens, they can reach safely. So 1960, with only hammer and chisel, he started to carving that mountain, and like he kept going. After 5-6 years, his father was so frustrated, and then he said that I cannot take care of your kids. You have to stop this work. Nothing is happening. You are mad, and you have to take care of kids. He said, okay, that's fine. So he started working again as a day laborer to provide for his kids. And at night, he's kept continuing carving down this mountain. So after 15-16 years, when he was halfway through, police arrested him, and they alleged him that you are doing this stuff and selling these rocks. Why you are doing this? He said that I am not doing anything. I'm just making a path. They said that this is not your job. This is the government job. And they put him behind the bars. But by that time, he gained so much popularity that the journalists and advocates came for his rescue, and he got released from that. And he started again doing his work. And after 22 years, he started in 1960 and finished in 1982. And he made a path. He carved down 360 feet long mountain and 50 feet high. And he made a path 30 feet wide. So I want to show him his work and pictures. So could I share a screen? Yeah. So this was the mountain, and this is the road that once he did this, and in 2012 the government came into this and made a road here, and he died in 2007, and he received like state funeral, and now he's getting highest Bharat Ratna award also. So that was a similar kind of like hurting the ego story. One on the other side, like Shaka was on the negative side, and this guy, like after the death of his wife, on the positive side, created this path. And now this path is solved that problem from 40 miles to 10 miles. And now every can travel through their village to the other village. So that was an inspiring story for me when I was reading that Zulu story. And on the trading on the trading side, I want to show you one slide also. This too, like this I learned a very good lesson from this DE stock on Friday. Like my entry was here around 383, and this, like, I put on this wheelbarrow just one
That, yeah.
stock.
Yeah, you need
We
to shift
can't-
to shift to the other window.
Oh, okay. Is this okay now? No.
No,
Oh,
let's see.
let's see. First, I have to go the stop share.
Yeah.
Is this okay now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this stock I just on Friday took it for a fun. I just on this wheelbarrow just put only one stock, and I just wanted to see, like, this is one of the greatest company of America. Like how it's doing. It's jumped from around like 370 to 385 area, went to like almost 394 or fall down, and then I entered here around 383. It went there, and I was doing something else. I wasn't paying attention to this, and when I came back, like after 10 minutes, I didn't put any stop. I was hoping that it's going to go higher, and then it fell down like a rock. So this was a great lesson for me. I have seen that kind of movement in the penny stocks, but I wasn't hoping for this, like almost a $400 stock to happen like this. But I was satisfied that I had only one stock of this company, and I'm still holding that one. After that, I look at the daily chart, and this one is in a downtrend in a channel. And it hit the high of that channel, and now it's again at the bottom of the channel. So I'm hoping from Monday start gonna go up, otherwise I'll get out of it. So that was the story on the trading side also. And the other, Aho.
Well, I'm just reminded by how much work there is to do all the time. It's always there. And so don't be in a hurry to cut through the mountain, but you got to cut through the mountain. I like that. And a brick at a time. And standard bricks make it easier to load. And you can find the size of the brick you can manage. And just get about the work at your maximum sustainable rate. And then just pick a couple of them to work on a week or a day or whatever. Just work with the one you pick and improve that. Make a quick scan, but pick one and go. The next step is the important one. And Jeff, I'm reminded of the onion skin metaphor that I was writing about on Friday. About you keep peeling it back further and further, and at some point you just realize there's just always another skin, and it does make you wonder at some point. Let me fast forward to what the central prompt is, the central values. You can start working it, and how did those grow into position to become the onion? so you can start looking at that thing from both sides of the tunnel. You know, from the surface to the center of the earth, from the center of the earth to the surface, if you're tunneling. So I thought your coach's eye structure on that was really sound, and you know, the coach has to remember the player has to play the game. You can't be in such a hurry to always tell them everything that they've got to do before they can do anything. You know, you gotta, you know, the time at what we're gonna practice on today. You know, is always the thing on the coach's mind, which is, you know, in about 10 minutes I'm going to get in the car and drive over to set up the soccer field for today's practice, and I'm thinking about the kids that are going to be there and what they need and what we've done and the next thing to work on, and trying to keep it fresh, but also to build on certain standards and structure. Like, it's always going to be 10-minute drills, so I got to set up the field so that you know, there's the transition time between drills is 0 minutes or 1 minute, because that's how long it takes them to go walk and get a drink, stretch their legs a little bit, cool off, and then come back to the next station that's always set up. So I got to have my practice plan, my trading plan is how to set up the cones and whatever, so that as we do a thing and I tear it apart, it leaves the next drill, or I can rotate between stations and keep them busy all the time. So I enjoy that part of it as much as anything, is, you know, envisioning the flow of what the whole practice session is going to look like, and going from station to station, and why we're choosing that, and keeping it fresh for them, so they, I know what we're doing when they see the cones in a certain way. I said, do you really? And sometimes we do it the same way, other times, just so that they are always in a state of surprise. But part of that is teaching them to look through the coach's eye as well. When they see the cones in a certain way, they know what they're supposed to do, and then I can turn them into assistant coaches to show other kids that are new what it is they have to do. So there's something about that in the plan, prepare, execute, assess cycle that I really like, and the onion skin. You know, thinking about what is at the center of the onion, what's on the surface, the skin that protects it so the inside can grow. You know, the same way the tree has bark. You know, I always used to think, which way does ask a kid this sometime to see how they think. When the tree grows, how does it grow? Does it add a layer on the outside, or does it grow in the middle and push the rest of the tree out? Just ask them to think their way through that. And you know, it has to be obviously adding a ring, but it makes them think about that as the tree is in motion, just really, really, really slow. And it gets them thinking in an interesting way. Yeah, I'm grateful for the stories and the stretches you guys gave me, Damien and the bricks, and can't tell you how many wheelbarrows I've knocked over. You don't actually not that many. You actually only have to learn that lesson once, maybe twice, and then you realize, oh yeah. My dad and grandpa used to go, the lazy man's load. You think you're going to overload it, so you only have to do one trip, and you end up making more work. So there's never enough time to do it right, but always enough time to do it over. So I'll try to keep those in mind. So I'm going to hit the tones and ask you to think about your word for the week ahead, and then we'll get ready to move on to the rest of our day and week and month. And I would tell you I'm going to hang the hour-long session from the Foundations course Q&A this morning. It was really, really good and worth a listen as a way to reconnect to the idea of the coaching eye lesson. I think of that as. So anyway, here we go. Listening hard for the word that comes to mind. Oh, I did it. I had it backwards. Sorry. Jeff.
Wedge.
Ernie.
My word for the week is rhino with grit.
I like that one. Chunlong.
No attachment.
Damien.
Focus.
Satya.
That was my word also, focus, but I'm choosing hammer now.
Mine is practice. So this will move us into coffee talk and then and out the door. All right, take good care, guys. I got to hit the road, and always great to hear from you. And have a great Sunday, and let's get after it again this week. Take good care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye now.